Hi, I'm Marianne Clyde, and I am the host of The Power of Decision. And a really great guest today is Carolyn Caliri. She's the founder of Bust Your Clutter, LLC. Wow, Carolyn, I met you when I was your client, right?
That's right. That's right.
And so that is why, she was such a strong lead for me through my move, that I wanted to introduce you to her, and she and I have had some conversations recently about how some decisions that she has made over the course of her career have really kind of skyrocketed her life. They're not all business, some are personal, some are family oriented, some are ideas that you have. But
Right.
let's get started. You ready to share some stories with me?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Well, first of all, the other day, you had knee surgery.
Right.
Okay.
Ooh.
So and you're laying in bed and can't sleep in the hospital that night.
Right. No, I was at home, but yes, I
Oh,
could
you
not
did.
sleep.
Okay. I thought you were still in the hospital and you're thinking,
No.
well, I can't get up and walk around. So,
Oh, I did.
okay. Yeah, I know you did. So what kept you awake? Was it the pain?
No, I just
Was
had a
it?
nap. I had a nap during the surgery, and
Yes, you did.
I don't nap during the day, so then I just couldn't go to sleep like I normally would, which is around 11.
And so
So
your
my
brain is
brain
doing
was just
this.
sort of, yeah, like I was just sort of daydreaming. And recently, my parents live next door and they're older and they have some health needs. So we had been exploring the idea of cohabitating and living together rather than next door, because I'm finding myself more and more running next door. So we had looked at some areas that were further from where we live, and my mom is still driving, and it just felt a little too far away and removed from the community which we live in, which is called the Villages in Florida. It's a very large retirement community. So I just had a little whisper, and I went on the village's website and I just searched homes. And for both myself and my mom, a lot of what we are able to do is pool therapy. So I was looking for a home with an in-ground pool, which we do not currently have, and enough bedrooms that would support everybody, which would be like 4 to 5, and enough space so that it felt comfortable, not that we would be crowded and on top of each other. And up popped this one home that's in a village's family neighborhood, so different from the retirement section. They have obviously people who work here, and it was within our budget. So there was an open house the following morning, just coincidentally. And I sent the link to my realtor, to my husband, and to my mother. And in the morning, my husband said, "That house is beautiful." And I said, "It is. It looks perfect." And then I messaged my realtor, and I told her there was an open house, that we were just going to go look at it. And then I just went next door and talked to my mom and asked if she'd like to go. And she said yes. And
Hmm.
it is the perfect situation. It's laid out just right. And so a lot of the work I do, I'm helping people through phases of life. And the phase of life here in the villages are, some people are coming in new and they're excited about their retirement. And in those cases, I help them set up their homes as efficiently as possible, kind of with the thought in mind of simplifying and keeping things streamlined. And then other people are going to live with family, going back up north, out west, wherever they were from previously. And for my parents and myself, we like the warm climate. And my background is in social work. So I don't, my philosophy is with home living in your own home versus having to make a different decision. And they have the funds to support that. And we have some home care now. So I we all went to the open house, and we
Okay,
wound up.
wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Okay,
I'm
I
sure,
know.
I am sure if my memory serves me, not too long ago, this was, you know, I want to move, but I just think I'm going to wait 6 months, 3 years. I mean,
Right.
it was just like,
I know we had this idea like a month ago and it wasn't quite right. But again, I just had this little whisper in my ear, and I listen to those whispers, like whether you call it God or, that inner voice or whatever it is, and I'm a positive person. So I had just had surgery, but I was able to weight bear and walk. It was just a meniscus repair. So we went off to two different open houses in the same community. One was around 2,000 square feet, one was around 3,000. And that was the house I was more interested. We were all more interested in. And we put an offer on that house. So then over the course of the next week, which was just this past week, I became not only the the founder, but also a customer. And I had to prep both my house and my mother's house just the way I would do for somebody that I was working for. In
Uh-huh.
preparation for listing photos, we kind of pared everything down. We took all the family photos down, packed away things that we know we're going to want to take with us, but don't need to be out for other people to see. And we just got all ready. And so both houses went live on Saturday and Sunday. We were a day apart. So within a week's time, the whole plan is hatched. Now, it's real estate, so everything has to kind of align, but we asked for a 60-day close, which hopefully allows us enough time to get our offer and move forward.
So, and you, I think the reason it was rolling around in your mind so readily is because you had
Yes.
described it in so much detail.
I had.
I
I
don't,
actually I always make a wish list for different things. I am a fairly simple person. Bust your clutter is my business. So I like to keep my life simple, just with what I need. I don't require a lot. You can see I'm not fancy. I just have my cap on today. So some days I do my hair, some days I don't. And oh gosh, I lost my train of thought.
where you were talking about how you were just, this is what you do. You had this
Right.
in your mind because you have a list of things that you.
Oh, right. So for the house that I was envisioning that would support all of us, 4 to 5 bedrooms in full sun with like maybe trees on the perimeter of the property, but
Mhm.
not like over the house, with a swimming pool, possibly a bonus room upstairs, but no bedrooms upstairs. And this house does have a bonus room upstairs, so my husband can escape from all of us and my family. My grandchildren and my son and daughter-in-law are also moving back from Italy, and they're going to be living close by. So part of my dreaming was to have a place that everybody can gather. So there's a large outdoor space with the pool and plenty of seating room. And just like my parents can enjoy their great grandchildren and their older grandchildren that are in their 30s, and we can all just eat together and really do the simple things in life, which is enjoy each other without having the stress of all the worry. I think I felt like I was carrying all the worry as a daughter. And I think
Mhm.
my mom, as the wife of somebody who has Alzheimer's and is 7 years into his journey with that disease, she had all the worry of her household and not wanting to bother me or burden me. And
Mhm.
my choice was to move to be closer to her because I wanted the warmth and the weather. I'm from up north. So really just kind of embracing the next, I've heard a few people recently refer it to the next season of life,
Mhm.
whatever phase you're going through, just keeping that positive outlook, like how can we make it work, and how can we get this done?
And you were so excited. I mean, I got a text from you that just
Right.
says, "I have news. I have news." You were just so excited
Right.
about making this decision.
Right.
And and so the questions, since the show is about why to make a decision,
Right.
why it helps to make a
Okay.
decision and
Right.
how can change your life.
So for me personally, aside from somebody threatening your life, which is part of my background, or threatening harm to you in some way, I don't have fear associated with making a decision. So I would say, because of my early experiences in my adult life and the situation I was in, I've chosen to live my life and I make decisions, hopefully sound decisions, that are going to benefit my family. So, when I was raising my children, it was, how do I create a safe home for them? My husband was in the military. So we had to move sometimes often and frequently. And, there wasn't always necessarily a choice in that, but the choice was I could create my home situation no matter where we live you know?
Absolutely.
And then, kids are resilient, so they would like find their friends. I always coached, my husband coached, so we would become community involved very quickly. And
Mhm.
then we would surround ourselves with hopefully like-minded people that were hardworking, raising their families and just trying to live a good life simply. Yeah.
So you have always found that making a decision helps you be able to predict your future in a way that
Yes.
somebody who doesn't, because if
Right.
you had left your life to
Right.
chance, things could have turned pretty bad.
Sure. Like,
Yeah.
even from the beginning when my earlier adult story started, my decision was to create a safe home for my young child who was 1 when I had this incident happen, where
Mhm.
my life was threatened while I was holding my child. And I was lucky that I was living in a family-owned home. My grandparents had passed away. My father and mother owned that house, and I could live there inexpensively. And I made a decision to empower myself, and I went back to school full time. And I got my college degree. I waitressed on the weekends. I was a nanny after school, 5 days a
Wow.
week. So I have a lot of energy, so,
Yes,
like,
you do.
luckily, that worked for me. So, my schedule was packed. I would leave the house at 7 and not get home until 7 every day, but my son when I went to college, he went to the child development center that was there, so he went with me. I only went to school I made a decision to only go to school 3 days a week for most of my semesters, then I was able to even hone my schedule further to 2 days a week so that I didn't, over I didn't for me, daycare full time was a struggle. I wanted to be the one placing my values and my beliefs within my child. So I had choices because my dad rented me the house inexpensively, and then that allowed me to work and be a nanny. And that job allowed me to take my child with me. So I still had him.
Hmm.
Um, and then the military journey started, so I had to kind of break away from that. I went to 4 colleges to graduate from UMass Boston because our journey took us to Oklahoma. We were there for a short period of time and then to New Jersey. So I had the bulk of my courses at UMass Boston, but I had to make a decision. How am I going to figure this out? Like, I want my degree.
Yeah.
And I found out that I could get college courses pre-approved. We're going back over 30
A
years
while.
ago. It was 31 years ago when all this took place. So there wasn't a lot of internet. There was actually no internet in my house. I didn't have a computer. I had very
Mhm.
little money. I actually had a typewriter.
There you go. That was a while ago.
That was a while ago. But, every decision I made was always based on what I thought would be best for myself and my family. So there's
Mhm.
never a judgment about other decisions other people make, but this is what was best for me. It was what was in my heart and what felt right for me. And I had a young child that had some struggles due to some domestic violence, so he needed a very stable um, environment that was filled with a lot of structure, and I needed that structure too. But I never gave up. I never quit. I didn't throw in the towel. It was hard, but I made the decision not to quit because I
Those are
felt
amazing, amazing stories. Finish. I think I just interrupted you. Go ahead.
no, I think that for me, if I quit, the person who was inflicting difficulty into my life, it felt like he would win.
Mm.
And I just wasn't gonna lay down. I just wasn't. And I was very, very lucky that I had like super parents growing up and that they were very supportive and I did have a safe home to live in. Without all of that, the outcome for my life could have been different. Yep.
Well, and you have always, since I've known you, you've been a positive person. And
Yep.
this business that you've had going for 5 years now, you help other people
In the
make
villages, but
decisions.
I've had it, I had it in Boston even over 20 years ago. but
Okay.
I've had it in the villages full time working with really people transitioning some at some point during their retirement journey. Yep,
Mhm.
for the past 5 years. And I birthed my business during COVID
Of
because
course you did.
I lost my job. And so I said, well, I have a skill set and I believe I can help people. And in the villages, even during COVID, people were still moving at almost a rapid pace, like a normal rapid pace. It did not really slow down the real estate market. So
Mhm.
I got very lucky that my colleagues had asked me, a few colleagues had asked for my assistance through their moving process, painting a
Mhm.
home and packing a home. And then they started referring me. And that was in March of 2020. And by June, I registered my business officially with the state of Florida. And again, it was a wild, throwing all caution to the wind, if you would say that, because I was like, what am I doing? But I had nothing to lose. And I did have, the money that was coming through like the COVID unemployment money. So I had just
Yes.
enough that I was covering my bills. And by October of 2020, I had been called back to work in June and I was doing both my business and working for the villages. And then by October of 2020, I was full time. I had to resign my position. And the most outstanding thing happened that the villages asked me to meet with leadership and they endorsed my company.
Oh, wow.
And so that meant everything. So there's many departments in the villages, and when people call in and they have questions and they're referred to a realtor, I'm on a list for people who need packing or unpacking help. There's a relocation department. There's it's kind of like senior care. So if people are thinking about, oh, I can't have my own home anymore, I need assisted living and maybe independent living, assisted living, or memory care, there's
Mhm.
a department for that. And so my company was placed on all of those lists. And my company has grown, and I have a wonderful, fantastic team that is like my Cluster Clutter family.
Yeah.
And we just do an outstanding job. I have retired villagers working for me.
Mm.
And, part of my life philosophy is if we all have something to do each day and we have a purpose in our life, then, it does help lift you up. You're not just sitting at home and kind of stuck in a rut type of thing, So for myself personally, I always had to be busy just so that I could stay positive. That was a big
Yeah.
deal. Yep.
And you've been surrounded by you got a lot going on. You
All the
got a lot
time.
of
All the
irons
time.
in the fire all the time.
Right.
What's so special about that, you've also made personal decision never to let that suck you down. And we all have
Right.
our days, of course, where
Right.
we find ourselves being
Well,
sucked down. And
right. So a month ago, probably starting 6 months ago, my mom was having some significant health issues and needed two surgeries. There was a lot of testing that needed to be done and doctor's appointments. And because of my dad's Alzheimer's and my mom being overwhelmed, I attend all of their, not just my own medical appointments, but theirs as well, as many children do in the villages. They have to support their parents if they're here. And, I was really overwhelmed a month ago. I felt probably the lowest I felt in over 10 years, just like I don't know how to help everything.
Mhm.
And my mom's surgeries both were successful, and she's a month out and doing very well. My knee surgery went well a week ago. I've had on the very high end of no pain and a fast recovery, although, you can't rush recovery, but I'm having an excellent recovery. So now I just feel rejuvenated, like, okay, we made it through
Yeah.
some real hurdles and
Mhm.
challenges,
Yep.
and when you have parents who are aging and you need to assist them, it means everybody has to bend. And so
Mm.
we've been talking like that, my mother and I, because we're both strong women and, stubborn sometimes, both of
No.
us. Yes. So, it meant losing some independence, allowing home care to come in the house so that my mother could have the freedom to go out and my dad is well cared for. And
Mhm.
that was a struggle. It took quite a few uh, interviews with different agencies, and we found a great agency. We have one caregiver 5 days a week, and that's a choice.
Mhm.
My mom, it's been 2 years that we've had a caregiver, and we've built, we started with 8 hours, then 15. Now we have 30 as we've progressed with my dad's illness. We're all growing with him.
Yeah,
And he's happy and he's content and he gets out every day. He does nature walks. So my mom couldn't walk. I couldn't walk due to some of our health issues with our lower extremities. But Amy can walk. So Amy, the caregiver, takes my dad out every day. And we got a family dog. My parents have never had a dog.
wow.
And that was a choice. One of my workers passed away, and I thought, I think I can bring this animal into our home and, give this dog a really sweet life. And also
Mhm.
at the same time, lift the spirits in my mom's house because she doesn't have her partner to converse with anymore.
Right.
So, and I have seen that lift, that joy coming back to my mom, taking care of her little Yorkie and
Yeah.
having somebody to take care of in the house that's giving back to her too. I mean, he's just very, very sweet. And then I take part in walking. I still just up and down the street, I'm able to do that right now. And sometimes I do that walk with my dad. So
Mhm.
it's very nice. Yeah.
And so this new house that you just all of a sudden decided to buy in the middle of the night, you it's just really kind of changed your trajectory. So it's better not just for you and your husband, but it's better for your mom and dad and quite possibly for your business as well.
Right. Well, actually, it's funny that you say that. I was driving home today, and had I been living where the new house is, I would have been home in probably 5 minutes. So I live on the very south side of the villages. A lot of my work is from Lake Sumter Landing, which is kind of the center of the villages north, just because that's the older population. Those are the folks that are kind of having estate sales and moving on and downsizing. So I'm doing a lot of that work right now.
Yeah.
So I do feel like it is going to be a good decision. And it's the area where my mom and dad used to live. So she's very familiar. And that's kind of her hood.
Oh, there you go. There
And
you
that's
go.
where her friends are. So she's really looking forward to being back in that area. Yeah.
Well, Carolyn, I can have a personal testimony about how you help people make decisions because 6
Yeah.
months ago or so, we decided we were going to sell our house in the villages. And
Right.
so my realtor, because you made the decision to do what you do and you got
Right.
approved by the hierarchy
Right.
to, so my realtor, who was employed by the villages,
Right.
referred you. And so,
Right.
and I talked to, I think, two or three different people that might be able to help me move. We had a whole house full of furniture that we couldn't use because
That's
we were
right.
not going to buy another house there. And so you made it so easy and affordable for me to say, so you do this and you do that, and you'll
Right.
sell my golf cart and you'll sell
Right.
my bikes and
Yep.
and it was like everything
And
I
I sold
asked
your
you.
dog bath in the garage, which I've never sold a dog bath before, but that was a hot item, let me tell you.
It was a nice one, wasn't it? And it
It
was
was
like
I mean, I don't it's hard to even describe. It was a very large dog bath sink, stainless steel. It had to be disassembled, taken out, all the plumbing secured and all of that. But I mean, that one item between that and the bikes, I think had the most activity around people wanting them.
and you're the
Um,
one that did when I said, "What do I do with this and what do I do with
right.
everything?" I don't know if you knew all the answers, but you found one if you didn't. I mean, you
Right.
you came
Yeah,
up with
I don't ever give somebody an answer if I don't know the answer because of my social work background, having time and just, how I am as a human, I guess, having ties to the community. That's how I was raised. My parents
Mhm,
did the PTO, they coached, they did Sunday school. So I've always been very community involved and I always have those really good relationships and that development. So if there's something I can't do, I definitely have a connection with
mhm,
somebody who can help. So in your case, you didn't really need landscaping or power washing, but if you did to sell the house, I could have, I have people on the team to do
mhm,
those things. I
mhm.
mean, mainly you needed an estate sale, and I do it a little differently. It's not the only thing I do, but I charge hourly. And the true estate sale companies, they take a percentage. And to be honest, you had higher end furniture in your home. I did, I went in first and we did a whole itemized list of everything and kind of what I thought I could hopefully yield from that sale. And it wasn't as much as you had paid. It never is. And so for people, they have to understand they'll get about 25% to
Mm,
50% of the total value, and in some cases 10%. So
mhm.
anything I get above 10%, I know I'm doing okay. But I charge hourly for that, not a percentage. So the estate sale companies take 40%. And
Right.
I just, for me personally, when people work hard their whole life and these are their belongings, it's just part of my philosophy. I don't want to take
Mhm.
something that I don't feel like is mine. So you got a really nice outcome
Well,
from
that's because you
a
created a
sale.
very good situation, because the funny thing is you and I have never met in person
That's
yet.
correct. We never have
Even
yet.
even when you were working on my house, that was by
Right.
a phone call
That's
from
correct.
my place up in Virginia,
Right.
and you. So for me to be able to trust someone
Right.
in my house with everything I own down
Everything.
there,
I know.
and then getting it done in a timely manner. And of course, our
Right.
closing was during a hurricane. It
That's
was,
true. I forgot about that. That's true.
and you went back and checked, and everything was gone and done and
Right.
efficient. And so to be able to trust someone that I had never met in person, it's the way you operate that helped me say, I picked this woman, the price was right, the everything you answer, your answer is always, yep, I can do that. Yep, I can do that. Yep, I can do that.
Mhm.
So I never worried for a day, a
I'm so
moment
glad to hear that. That
that,
is really I mean, moving is stressful, and you were not moving, you had another home. This was a second home. So you were kind of downloading all of that extra furniture from your life, and you came and got all your own personal belongings. So I didn't have to pack you up. You guys took care of that piece of it. But it is a very, very stressful time. And people are older. The people I'm working with are older.
Mhm.
And just to have somebody tell me, you did something in 2 days that I thought would take 2 months or
Oh,
2 weeks or a whole year.
yeah.
The garage I did today, I did in 6 hours, but I worked side by side with the homeowner. So that was about 12 hours of labor because she was toe to toe with me. And, to say that you were at ease, I mean, my name is all I have in the whole world. It's
Mhm.
important to me. And I've operated under that philosophy that I just try to treat other people the way I would want to be treated.
That's
That's it.
right.
Yep.
Well, and that's amazing, but I know you have a lot of stories. So before we close up, you
Sure.
have clients with all kinds of stories that you
Right.
help them navigate a situation, and the fact that they chose you, they made a decision
Right.
to choose you. Can you think off the top of your head? And I remember you telling me about a woman um, last time we talked who had a really good outcome because she had worked with you.
Right.
Um, anything come to
So
mind?
I would say even this last couple, okay, I'm going to use Ruth and Phil. I just use first names. And
Okay.
he's a pastor and his wife. So the budget, they did not have a lot of money. And that's another choice I make, that if I can help somebody on a budget, if they say I have $500 to do this move, it's very rare. And so I'm charging a nice hourly wage. I work very hard for that money. So it's always worth it to people, and they tell me that. I'm not saying it, is that's what people tell me, like, this was well worth it.
Hmm.
Um, but Ruth and Phil had a very low budget, so I just worked with them, but they needed a lot of help. I come in and I provide the mover. I found one mover that I really like to partner with. Very, again, honest, does everything the way it should be done. It's village pack and ship and moving, and they take care of people's belongings the way you would want them taken care of. So I set them up with the mover. They got a nice quote. It was on a budget. They were moving just from the villages to Orlando, about 1 hour to be closer to their children. They were
Hmm.
downsizing considerably, so they also needed a small sale, more of a garage sale than a whole house estate sale. So I came in, the mover came, and I arrived, and for the quote, and I put tables in the garage, set up their sale, packed them all up in 1 day. So I did that in 10 hours, set up the sale, had somebody come and price it. I had one of my workers come and price the sale for me. And then I was having my surgery on the 18th of April in March. Oh my God, where are we? April.
April. It was just last week.
And so their sale got done. They signed on with the mover. Their children came and picked up the furniture they were going to be taking, which was very helpful. They were all packed. I mean, I can't tell you, he called me every day to thank me for this past week. Like, Phil, he was so grateful. And they were much older. So, I mean, it could have been very overwhelming. And then I never worry about when I say yes, I can get it done. I have a pickup person. He lives up in the Ocala forest. It's very impoverished. So he came down after the sale, picked up everything that was remaining in the garage. There was two dressers that he couldn't take, and we were trying to sell them online and we just couldn't. I wound up buying them for my grandchildren who are moving back from Italy. It just occurred to me yesterday. So I went and picked up one yesterday and one today. And then there was this couch. And I called for bulk pickup, which I really don't like to do, but it's $10 and I thought if nobody else, it was free on Facebook Marketplace, nobody was coming for this couch. So I called yesterday and they told me they couldn't pick it up until May 14th. And I was just like, uh-oh, because it really needs to be gone. The new homeowners are going to be closing on that home and moving in. Well, at 7 o'clock last night, somebody came to look at that. I called Phil at 6 and said, I have somebody interested to come and look at it. And they came today to pick it up. That was the last piece of the puzzle. So everything did come together. And I don't have a lot of explanation for that other than I do work hard. I'm pretty tireless, but there's kind of a master planner
Well,
upstairs.
and that's why it comes together, because you've got a vision of
Right,
where you're going, why you're going there, and
right.
what it looks like. I mean, when you described to me the house
Yes.
you were looking for, I could see the lake that you
Right,
wanted to be on. I can see
right,
see the upstairs
right,
where your husband wanted to go. And it
right,
was you were very specific about what
right.
you want and why you wanted it.
Well,
And
I
I
tell everybody to
yeah.
ask for it. Ask for what you want. Say it out loud. And I'm serious because when I have somebody call and say to me, like, I really need a bed for my children, or, somebody's in need and they call me or contact me.
Mhm.
I had a veteran organization that they just cold called me and asked, like, do you ever get twin beds? Oh, I'm sorry, it's a church organization. It's military outreach ministry that's through one of the local churches in the villages. So I met with them Panera one day just to kind of hear about what their organization did, and it benefits veterans that are up in Ocala it's called Veteran Village. And so they're doing over all the rooms in Veteran Village and they needed twin beds, and that's what they asked for. But then I asked them, is there anything else? And so they provided a whole list of everything that these veterans need. Well, I have donated numerous twin beds now because now I ask my customers who really don't always need the money. If I sell a twin bed, even with the frame and all, it's like $100 each for the twin beds. So, a lot of people have two twin beds set up in a guest room that was for the
Mhm.
grandkids, but they were rarely used. They're in very good condition. Now I just ask my customer, would you mind donating those? Nobody ever says no.
Wow.
So, I've been able to partner with this veteran company, but it's just asking for what you want in life. And, for a long time, I kept a wish list where I would just really type it out. And I did it at the beginning of every year. So, kind of like a New Year's resolution, but, sometimes they were items, but mostly it was situations like, what did I want for my family?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Carolyn, I can't even think of a better way to close up the podcast with your wisdom that says,
Thank you.
ask for what you want. You just
Right.
write it down,
Right.
speak it out loud,
Yes.
because that's the thing that pulls us toward our vision.
Right.
And you have a lifetime of showing that. And so I just want to thank you for
Thank you.
sharing the time with us. And It's Bust Your Clutter with Carolyn Caliri, and I'm going to put your website on
Thank
the on
you.
this video so people can see it and they'll know how to get in touch with you.
No, I so appreciate you doing this. It's really been fun. And, again, it's just my passion in life is just making sure people live well.
Hmm.
That's all.
I love that. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thank you.